we'll be using the most modern technologies in terms of turbines, steam generators, etc., as well as pollution control equipment to make sure that we've absolutely minimized the impact on the environment. Most importantly, we will not be using Hudson River water to cool the plant. We'll be using air coolers.
You know, another claim is that Danskammer is just not needed. There's enough of local electricity without a new gas-fired plant.
So Danskammer right now is part of the generation base that New York State relies on. In the next 12 to 18 months, we'll have more plants retiring. So Danskammer, as it exists now, is a critical capacity resource. Whether it's needed in the future is a decision that is made as part of our process with the Public Service Commission and New York ISO, reviewing our application to rebuild the plant for the next 20 years. Someone else will make that decision.
So is it just that there's right now not enough solar and wind to generate what the electricity that's needed?
Yes, we have less than 10% solar and wind in New York State. The goal is to get that to be over 70% in the next 15 or 20 years. But until then, we need clean, efficient, environmentally friendly generation.
Realistic timetable for when the renewables would come into play?
Well, we have had very slow development in New York State over the last decade in renewables. The governor in the state has been sponsoring many new projects. We're enthusiastic about those projects, but realistically, we're at least a decade away from being able to rely much more on renewables.
Now, the governor and New York State lawmakers have really pushed to make New York State one of the greenest states in the country. And opponents say that what you're doing, what Danskammer is looking to do, is the opposite, and they're pushing lawmakers not to approve it because of that.
We completely support the state's environmental goals, but we know that you can't power this industry and this residential base just with wind and solar. We need backup. We need dispatchable, environmentally friendly backup, and that's what the new Danskammer would be.
Is there a compromise? It seems that opponents are, they just can't, there's a no. Just simple no on any of what you're pushing for.
Well, one of the things they ask is whether we can do renewables on the site. It's not large enough to do much in terms of solar or wind, but we are installing a technology that will run on green hydrogen, 30% day one if it was available. And over the next 15 or 20 years, we think renewable hydrogen can be the solution and the addition to our renewable economy.
If the state doesn't allow this to go through, given what the closing of Indian Point, what happens to this facility?
This facility will continue to stand by and back up our economy for the next 10 or 20 years.
So it would still be used depending on the need for energy?
Absolutely. This site is available every day to support the grid. When Indian Point closes, the last unit at Indian Point, we will be running more.
So in effect, more pollution would be taking place, hurting the environment by the use of this plant as it is today.
This region has several very, very old power plants. The new Danskammer will displace those and dramatically reduce emissions of greenhouse gases and carbon, but we need to build it first.
And the old Danskammer, if it's here, what does it do to the Hudson? What does it do to emissions?
Well, the old Danskammer would run more than it does now. It now runs less than 5% of the time. The models say it may run between 10 and 20% of the time, using the technology from the 50s.
The timetable that you're looking at, what are you hoping for from the
state? So we're looking to have our application declared complete with the state, hopefully sometime in the next 30 days. Under Article 10, there's 12 months for public hearings and other examination of everything we've filed, and then the state has to make a decision whether we are allowed to build the new plant or not.
What's the biggest misconception you're dealing with the public, with opponents, with the people in Albany that are going to be making the decision?
The biggest misperception is that somehow this will be the source of major pollution that's very bad for the environment in general. That's not true. Natural gas, which this plant will run on, is the least polluting of all the hydrocarbons. We will have the best available technology to reduce emissions almost completely from volatile organic compounds and particulate, all the things that coal plants put in the air. What's more, we'll be much more efficient and will produce cheaper electricity. And there's estimates from the consultants that will save New York State over $50 million a year on electricity bills.